Okay, we're back for the third session in the Red Orchestra 2 SDK tutorial series, I guess. We're going to touch on spawning fixed machine guns today, along with adding some destructible meshes to your map. And first thing I want to cover real quick, though, is adding another terrain layer for your map, so you can paint on different terrains, mix it up a little bit, and kind of vary the ground textures just a bit. Okay, something I want to touch on real quick are adding additional terrain layers and painting the terrain. This will be pretty brief, and there are other tutorials about it, as it's kind of a basic UDK feature. But I've got the grass here, and that's the only one I've got. I just want to mix it up a little bit, just to show you how you can paint other materials, things like that. So let me find just some dirt. What do we have here? Dirt and grass. That'll work. We'll click the dirt. We've got it selected here, and we're going to make it the same way we made the original. I'm going to go over to my terrain. I've got my terrain tool selected here, and I'm going to go here. I'm just going to right click, create new setup layer, auto create from the material. So now this one won't show up because we'll have to paint it on first. So the base layer is going to have the grass no matter what. The entire map's going to be covered with grass. Now we can paint over the grass with our dirt. So I'm going to click my paint tool, and I'm going to tone down the strength a little bit. It's not quite as important as when you're elevating or shrinking. But here, as you can see, I'm going to left click while I'm holding down control, and that's going to give me my there we go. It's going to give me my new terrain, so I can paint that around, and you can play with this, make new paths, warn, things like that. And you can have typically you can have I believe it's 12 textures on the map. If you add more than 4 or 5 layers, you're going to easily hit that limit, and you'll go to paint, and the entire area will turn like this rainbow color, which means you've gone over. So you got to eliminate a texture or just eliminate a layer in general. So that kind of covers that real quick. And next up, we're going to moving into deploying fixed machine guns. So we'll cover that next. Okay, when we want to throw down a fixed machine gun, a lot of this can be copied from stock maps if need be. If you get confused, you don't understand it, you can always go to any map that has one of these already and kind of see the way they did it. Usually the trickiest part's the Kismet. But I'll go over it here, not real slow but not real fast, and just kind of touch on some things. So I'm going to set it up. We'll just put it here for the time being. I'm going to go over to my actor classes, and what we're going to do is go down to, where did I go? Oh, I'm sorry, Note. I had it all set up, ready to go, and I still couldn't find it. We're going to click on Note, and then we have RO Fixed MG Spawn Point. So I'm going to click that. I'm just going to right click here, and I'm going to add one. But you'll see all it is this little notepad, because it's just a kind of a note. This is just telling it something's going to be placed here. What we can do, this isn't necessary, but it's better to visualize things. I'm going to search for my fixed MGs, and these are going to be not static meshes but skeletal meshes. So I'm going to narrow these down. What do we have? Allies have the Maxim. Here we are. Here's the Maxim. It's the third person. So I'm going to throw this down. Well, you know what? This doesn't have a tripod. Let's use MG34 or something, just because I think that'll be easier with the tripod. You usually have to put the Maxim on like a sandbag wall or something like that. But this one has a tripod. I think it'd be a little bit easier for the time being. So I'm going to click on the properties for my mesh and or for my fixed MG spawn point, and I'm going to type in mesh in the search bar. Down here, I'm going to plug in my skeletal mesh I search for over here. I'm using the tripod. You can use anything you want, but you want it to kind of represent what it'll look like. This is helpful because you want to see how it's going to fit in once it spawns. So there's my third person mesh I've put in there. Oh, but I can't see it. It's because it's the way the origin point here is. It's underground. So we're just going to pull this up and just kind of stick it where we more or less would think it would be. In my experience, the way these get, I guess, spawned in is they seem to kind of get dropped from midair into the spot. Transports seem to work the same way. And so usually I just kind of raise it up a little bit and it's going to drop and land and hit kind of the ground there, I guess you could say. So even if I raise this up a foot in the air, it would still kind of drop down to the ground. So that's all set up there. Now if we try to play it, nothing's going to happen because we need to tell it to spawn. This is not a static mesh. It's something that's kind of alive in the game, so it can be disabled and enabled, kind of like an objective. But anyways, I'm gonna click on the icon or whatnot here, go back to my Kismet, and I'm going to throw one down, a variable representing this is my fixed MG spawn point. So a couple things we'll do. I just did a practice run of this to make sure I knew what I was doing, so hopefully I won't get too confused. We need a new action actor factory X. Okay, and I won't go too slow here. You can always replay the video if need be. There's actually some online tutorials about this too. So where we want this actor factory is going to create the machine gun. And where do we want it to put it? The spawn point? Well, we want it to put it where we just had, where we just placed our spawn point in the game with our little preview. But right now, this is just a generic factory. We want it to spawn the machine gun. And this is what I said, you could copy these from other maps to kind of skip these steps. I'm just going to go through it from the beginning. So these are all the different actor factories available. And you can get kind of crazy with some of these. You can play around with them. Some of them are kind of neat. Vehicles, things like that. If you ever played the tank gunnery map, this is how I made all those tanks spawn out on the range. But we're going to pick the fixed MG. Now once I've got that picked, and if for some reason you can't see this window over here, make sure your properties are checked. But if I click off of it, I lose it. So I've got the actor factory selected. I've already chosen fixed MG. So I'm going to do the little drop down arrow, but it wants to know what fixed MG do you want. Well, I've got several available, and since we use the MG34 preview mesh, I'm going to use the same one. So we're going to spawn it. How many do we want to spawn? Well, we're just going to spawn one. If we wanted to spawn two fixed MGs at the same time, then we would do it this way, and we would have to add another spawn point, and we could assign these variables the same way. But anyways, we only want one. And now the next part here. So we've got it where we want it to spawn, and we can tell it when to spawn, when the map starts. But one thing we want to be able to control is when it's destroyed. Another good habit is to destroy all fixed MGs at the start of a map. This really only pertains to 2-round maps or multiple round maps. That way, if someone's shot through all the ammo in a fixed MG at the end of a round and you don't destroy it and respawn it at the beginning of the next round, it's going to be empty to start. Maybe that's not a big deal. Maybe you like that kind of thing. But I'm going to show you just real quick how we'll go about that. I'm going to variable, object. It's the same thing. Connect that here. Now this is going to give me a reference to the spawned machine gun, and I need to name this, not comment, but actually name it. And I'm just going to call it MG34-1. Okay, and you can see that pops up there. Now I need to have I need to be able to call on this reference whenever I want. So, and you can use these techniques for other things too. They're very useful. I used them on the minefields on Hill 400. So here we're going to select new variable again, but this time we want a named variable. And what we're going to name it is the exact same thing we named this one. So where we find variable name, we'll type in again MG34-1. If you if it worked, you'll get the green check mark. So as long as you spelled them the same, it should work. And then new action, actor, destroy. So that just, and then what we're going to set this up is when the map starts, we're going to destroy the fixed MG, and it doesn't matter if it's the first round or third. Then we're going to spawn the actor. So it's going to spawn the machine gun there with a fresh full set of ammo as a brand new machine gun every time, and we can test this in game real quick just to make sure it worked. And I better turn this down or this could break someone's eardrums. Here we go. And once we spawn in, you can see it over there to the left. I'll run up. The ground kind of looks screwy because we painted the terrain, but we never rebuilt the lighting. So we'll just make sure we're able to hop on this, and we seem to be, and it works no problem. Some other things you can do is, and some of the vanilla maps do this, you can disable a machine gun just like you enable it, or I'm sorry, you can destroy it. So maybe after a cap falls, we want to disable the machine gun, then you would do this same, you would use this same setup to destroy it, and then you could re-enable it another time. Another real quick thing I want to touch on are fixed radios, or trigger radios, I'm sorry. So we're going to find it under trigger, RO trigger radio, and we can put it wherever we want. Right click anywhere you want to put it, and add RO trigger radio here. Now you'll see this green kind of cylinder around here is the trigger area. So that's the area you'll need to be in to be able to trigger the radio as the team leader. So we can change the size of that if we want. Typically you'd probably just use the default, but you can scale that up with the scaling tool. And what I'll do is also, so it's not floating up in the air, I'll just kind of lower it down to the ground a little bit. So the only thing left to do is enable the radio, and you can string a lot of this stuff together. It's kind of chained, but the new action we're going to do is enable the radio, which is right here under new action. Enable radio. I've got my radio selected in the level, so I can right click and add the variable representing it. So we would just enable the radio through the Kismet. Now we can test that real quick. But if you'll remember, you have to be the commander to use the radio, which we luckily are. You can trigger the radio in the SDK when you're testing it. You can't call in artillery or recon or anything like that, but we're not too worried about that right now. The radio should also show up on the HUD if we tap T or whatever. There it is. So we'll just run over to it. We're in the trigger area, so it says you're in the radio. I can tap control, but I can't do anything with it, and a little bug there, that's going to be stuck on the screen now. Nothing I can do about that because I don't have my overhead map and boundaries and such set up yet. So that covers the radio. Last thing I'm going to cover real quick in this tutorial are Destructibles. The last thing I'm going to touch on in this tutorial are Destructibles. There are more or less two types of Destructibles in the game. The kind that just destroy based on damage they received. Anyone can blow them up, sometimes artillery, and you'll be able to set it what damages them. The other option is to have a satchel objective, which is something like an engineer or someone with a satchel blows up, you get points for it. They show up on the map, either protect or destroy. A lot of times there may be doors or something like that. If you're familiar with the Stalingrad Kessel map, you have to blow those doors open in A and B and the walls and C or whatever. But we're just going to set up a basic one. I like to use a lot of my maps more or less for environment and kind of give like a Michael Bay type holy smokes, look at that reaction. So if you've played any of my maps, you'll know that. To set up the Destructible, you can copy these from other maps, and that might be an easy way to do it. I'm going to do it from scratch, just so you know exactly kind of how they work, and there's a lot of options available, and let's just get started so we can keep this tutorial somewhat short. So what you're going to want to do is go to your actor classes again, RO Static Mesh Destructible. This is something for Rising Storm, but we're just going to use this one, the Static Mesh Destructible. Select it. We'll just put it over here to the right where it's a little less crowded. Right click, add it here. Now it's just a box because this is just the generic default one, and this is a preview mesh. So this is showing what it will look. This is just what it's going to show in the editor. So we want this to be what we want the destructible to be. In my case, I'm going to use this Opal fuel truck. So much like the preview mesh on the fixed machine guns, we just need to set it. So right now it's this chest high box, which is just the generic setting. So I just plug in the Opal Blitz there, and now that's the preview. And you can see Destructibles always have this orange circle, red circle, or whatever you want to call it, where the base of them are, where the I guess the origin. And that helps too, because some, like a fence, once you blow them up, they're gonna go from up and down to laying flat, or the pieces that are left over. So you don't want that below ground, or you're not going to be able to see the debris. And in this case, the base is very similar to the destroyed version. So that's our preview version. What we're going to do is go down to the Static Mesh Destructible options. And again, you can double click this or hit F4 to open it up. There's a few things you can set. First, we'll start off with our the assets. So the first asset, and as you can see right here, there's nothing there. So I'm going to add two. The first one is how it's going to look healthy. No damage, just how it spawns. And we want it to look exactly like this one. So we're just going to plug that one in again. The second mesh is how it's going to look after it's been destroyed. And there are ways to set up like different levels of destruction so it gets more and more damaged. We're not going to get into that today. We're just going to go from healthy mesh to destroyed mesh. So luckily we've already got one in the game. We have the Opal Blitz fuel truck damaged. So we're going to plug that in here. Hit the green arrow with it selected in the content browser. So we have our healthy one and we have our damaged one. The other options we have to set, it defaults to this chunky smoke, which looks horrible. I don't even really know why it's in the game other than this default setting. It's these horrible boxy sprites of smoke. A lot of times, now this is an emitter and we haven't gone over those yet, but a lot of times, especially if there's a damaged vehicle made, then you can kind of guess that tripwire included an effect for it. So we'll just kind of look here. I should have searched before we started all this. Okay, here we are. Good. Destruction, Opal Blitz. Now, a particle system is made up of emitters and things like that. And we can get into those a little bit later. They can add some cool stuff. Fire, smoke puffs, things like that. But since this one's already pre-made for destroying Opal Blitz, we're going to use it. And then a couple last things. The health. We're going to leave it at the default 100. If you want something to really need to take some damage, a lot of damage, you don't want it to simply be destroyed easily with the damage type you selected, you could raise this up if you want. But we'll leave that at 100. The other thing we can set is the sound. If we were to blow this up right now, we'd hear the noise of the satchel or whatever we used, but this thing wouldn't make any noise when it blew up. So we're going to go down to we're going to filter by sound cues, and there are tons of these. If we type in like explosion. Okay, and we're back after a catastrophic crash. Sometimes you'll notice if you try to search for something in the content browser and you haven't fully loaded all the packages, all sorts of bad things will happen. But I'm back now, and where were we? Oh yeah, we were setting up the sound. Last thing we had to do was set up the sound for the destruction. So over here, now that I'm fully loaded, I search for explode. And I can just look through here. We've got metal, medium, and you can listen to some of these. Here's vehicle. Double click on them. So that's a good one right there. You got tanks. Some of them don't always work when you try to do a preview. Yeah, that's a good one. We'll go with that one. So I've select the sound cue, not sound wave data, and I'm just going to plug it in here to destruction sound. And one thing we didn't do, I'm sorry, the types of damage. So right now there's no damage set. So even though this is destructible, there's no accepted damage types, and there are tons of these. The typical ones are artillery, satchels, a lot of times grenades. So what I'll usually go through here and do, actually I'm not going to set up all these, it'd be silly, but you can choose the type of damage. So if you want all grenades to damage it, you'd select this. If you'd want a vehicle running into the fence to knock it down, you'd select this. If you only wanted certain vehicles, like you only want the Panzer IV and maybe the T-34 to knock down a wall, but not the T-70 or the Panzer III, you would choose that. So we have satchel. Since I only have a team leader set up, and I know he has a grenade, I'm just going to do grenades. So since I've got the damage set to 100, probably 1, maybe 2 grenades will be necessary, but I can't imagine more than that. So let me save this real quick in case we crash again. But when you're setting up just a destructible like this, a destructible mesh, you don't need to do anything else to get it to work. There is one more thing you need to do for it to work online, and I'll cover that in a minute. I just want to test this. We'll see if it works with my team leader's grenades. There it is over there, and it won't show. You won't know it's a destructible, and a lot of times you don't until it blows up or falls over or crushes. If it were a satchel objective, it'd be a little different. It'd show up on the HUD. It'd show up on the overhead map. You can even ways to get it to glow and things like that when you have it set, or when you have a satchel in your hand. So let's see. Yeah, it worked. That was enough. And that's it. Now this will remain here until the end of the map. And by default, these destructibles will automatically reset after, I forget where the setting is, but they will automatically reset after the round change. So they'll come back and be brand new each round, which is typically what you want. But one other thing I'll cover real quick. If you like this, you want to use it a few times around your map, you can create an archetype, I guess how you pronounce that. And you're going to want to save this to your maps package. So if you recall, we called this test map. If I just start typing in and I hit the down button, it's going to find it all automatically. And then a lot of times I'll call this like Destructibles. So the group in the maps package is Destructibles, and I'll call this the Opal fuel truck, and that just tells me what it's going to be named. And if it's saved correctly, now here it is right here, I can put this down. You can also copy this and it will copy just fine, or now I can put this here or wherever I want. Actually, these I think you can drag and drop. Yeah. And these will be this reddish color when you look at them in the wireframe view. But here we go. All the settings are the same. All the health, the sounds, everything is identical. I can twist it if I want to have it go different ways. That way I can put a bunch down, and then later on if I decide, shoot, I want them to be able to be destroyed by small arms fire too, then I can change the archetype, and then that will, here's the archetype here. I can go in and change the archetype, and it'll affect everything that's already in the map. So that's kind of a convenient thing. One more quick note, to get it, this will work fine offline, but if you were to put this map on a server and you try to blow this truck up, it just won't blow up. That's because you need a damage replication info. Looks like a big dragon or a dinosaur, but it's under, I hope, yes, right here. It's under info, RO destruction replication info. You put this anywhere on your map, it doesn't matter where, it just has to be on the map. And there you can see it's like this raptor head or something like that. But what I'll do is I'll open it up, and I'll go down here to all my destructibles, well, there are none. So this lets the server know about your destructibles so it can recreate them properly. Again, an easy way to go find all of something, I go to my scene tab, I go down to the destructibles, there's only 2, select them both. I've still got my dinosaur properties opened up here, the replication info, and then all I'm going to do is click the green arrow with both of them selected, and now they're both plugged in here. There's where the setting is, I'm sorry, should reset. So it resets on each round. And that is where you can check it or uncheck it. If you want to, you'll notice some maps, things are still destroyed. If you play a second round, that's why. So that's set up here now. Now, if we were to play this online, all the destructibles would behave correctly. So that covers destructibles and how to convert them into archetypes so you can reuse them easily and replicate them online. We covered a lot today. I'm just trying to touch on some of the basics so you don't have to do so much digging around if you are trying to make a new map. Again, if you have any questions, things weren't clear, or there's something more specific that you want covered in the one of the tutorials, just post a comment below, or that's probably the best way to do it. And let me know exactly what you need, or what's not clear, or what's not good, and we'll go from there. But that concludes this tutorial, and thanks for watching. We'll see you soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.